Arbex is the spirit of the Northwest. You and I will travel and go on adventures together. There's nothing like the Northwest. You and I will experience new things together. There's nothing like the Northwest. And it can be found here on PNW Arbex. PNW Arbex is spirit of the Northwest.
Welcome to Pacific Northwest Urbex. Today we're going to take a drive in a very rainy and windy autumn day. We are in the town of Morton. We're going to go from Morton and take a drive through the woods. Well, not really through the woods, but through the forest on a highway. And we're going to land ourselves in Eatonville, Washington. So let's take a little drive around here through Morton. We'll take a small tour and see what the town holds. Basically, here on the right-hand side is the Morton Elementary School. It's currently under being remodeled. So let's go ahead and just drive around and see what we can find before we head on to the town of Eatonville. Here we'll pull into a city park for the town of Morton. It's basically has some RV parking. I'm not too sure if you can camp here during the winter time. It's a pretty popular park during the summertime. Basically, Morton is a small town and located in Lewis County, Washington. It's known for its logging heritage and is a gateway to major natural attractions like Mount Rainier National Park and Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument. So it still has logging in it. In fact, we're gonna go take a look at one of the lumber mills here in a little while. We'll go drive into the back of it and you can see some of the lumber. But basically, it's if you want to talk about logging and how bad it is and it's devastating to the lands and stuff, basically in this area, logging is looked at as far as like harvesting corn you do annually. Logging and the lumber industry, they basically look at it as harvesting it, but it's not done annually. I believe it's done every 20 to maybe 25 years, and then they do replant. Wood is in everything that we use on a daily basis, so it is a vital part of the industry. Now, there is other logging mills in the area that have been closed for many decades, but there's still two operating here in Morton. But we'll go ahead and drive around and see what some of the houses look like and see what the town of Morton has installed on this rainy day. Morton is quite a distance from medical services, so the town of Morton actually has a hospital here. They did an expansion on it some time ago. I've been in it. I had a family member that had been in there a couple of times, and it's actually pretty nice in there. It's pretty nice facilities. It's nice to have with the hospitals being so far away. But we'll go ahead and keep driving around and take a look, see what they have. So we're approaching here on State Route 7. There you can see a Dollar General. Basically, that Dollar General used to be a grocery store, normal grocery store, and there's another one up here on the left. The two grocery stores have been in business for quite a few years. I think, although the community is so small, two is just probably too many. That Dollar General was one of the first ones that I remember ever coming here to this area, or even Western Washington. Dollar Generals are predominant through the east, maybe southeast area of the United States, for what I've seen personally. Up ahead is basically a lumber and hardware store. It's kind of one of those stores where you can kind of get everything in it. There on the right-hand side, that used to be a Radio Shack. What was kind of cool about this Radio Shack is it was a typical Radio Shack, but they also sold sporting goods, which worked out really well since there's a lot of camping and fishing nearby in, say, Rife Lake. So that was kind of a cool Radio Shack to visit. Up ahead on the right-hand side is Morton High School. We just passed by Spiffy's restaurant. If you ever get a chance to stop by, get one of their Spiffy burgers. It's an old-time burger place, pretty good. It's one of my favorite spots to hit every time I'm in town. And then up on the left-hand side here is the Morton Loggers Jubilee. And basically, they do competitions for different things like log cutting, pole climbing, everything, basically chainsaws, everything that you want to see. So if you ever want to kind of catch a glimpse of the Loggers Jubilee, I believe it is held annually. I'm not sure of what month. I think maybe possibly August or July, around there. But you can go online and find that information out. Up on the right hand side here, I believe it's part of the old Lions Park, and there's an old Lions building here that we're gonna just take a quick look at. It's pretty cool. I don't think it's being used anymore, but we'll take a quick glance at this old building. This old building kind of reminds me of the style of, obviously, a military type building. Here we have Fort Lewis Army Base, McCord. It's a joint basis now, but back in the day, I remember being on base as a kid and them having a ton of these buildings. Not that style, not maybe the exact materials, but I'm sure they still have a few left on base. Up here on the right-hand side, we can see some new housing construction. That's pretty rare for this area, as far as new housing buildings going up. It is kind of remote for most people to commute, but it kind of shows how the housing market is booming. I know it's booming everywhere, but here in Western Washington also, we're having a housing crisis just like everyone else is. But we'll go ahead and head back towards the main highway here a little bit. We're going to take a look at the train depot and a few other buildings. Here is home to the Morton Historical Society. This train depot was actually moved, maybe 30 years ago, possibly 20. We'll pass by the location. It was originally basically where the original location was. I do remember before this was restored, the whole building had a really heavy lean to it. So they did a pretty good job on restoring that. And it's the Moose Lodge there on the left-hand side. The town is, I don't want to say it's dead completely. There are a lot of businesses that have gone out of business. over the years. There used to be a really good cafe here on the left-hand side. That's no longer in business. We're going to go ahead and go straight. They have really good cafes and establishments here on the left and the right-hand side. And there's also really good meat markets. So if you ever want, you're just traveling through and you want some good beef jerky, that's on the left-hand side. They also have the Roxy Theater on the left-hand side, which is still in use. And the fire station and the police department are there on the right-hand side. So we make a left here. There's an old school laundromat that's still in service. And you can see in the background there, during the summertime, the views in any direction here in town are just beautiful. It's just mountains and pine trees everywhere. So if you ever get a chance to come here, I'd say probably the better time is during the summertime. It will be more busy in town. There is a lot of tours that pass through town. So we'll go ahead and continue to drive around a little bit more here. So there is a motel here if you're looking for lodging accommodations there on the right-hand side. I haven't ever stayed there. I have family that live not that far from here. But I've never heard anybody really complain about it. Mexican restaurant on the right-hand side. Grocery store on the right hand side, as I said earlier. But let's go ahead and head on Highway 7. We're going to go ahead and head our way towards the town of Eatonville. It's going to take us a little while. As you can see, the weather's pretty nasty. I was kind of hoping maybe it would kind of relax a little bit through. There is going to be some parts where the rain will subside. But let's just take a relaxing drive. I'm not going to really probably have a whole lot to say through the drive, but let's go ahead and head and see how the weather turns out. One thing also I want to note too is we're heading out of town. Here on the right hand side used to be an old gas station. That style where they have the rocks up on the roof and stuff, that style from the 70s. That's still pretty cool to look at. And there's an old hotel on the right hand side. I don't know, probably a few years ago, it seems like maybe they stopped using it as a hotel and maybe they just rent out permanently as apartments now. Not really too sure. There's a lumber mill here on the left hand side. And then basically as we're heading out, we're going to see another small hotel with little cabins. Don't know much history about that, except it's been there a really long time and probably be a cool little place to stay at. Hampton Lumber Mill is going to be on the right hand side. The Hampton Lumber Mill towards Randall and Packwood on Highway 12 has been shut down for a number of years. If you're looking for a job and you live out this way, they're actually doing some hiring. And then towards the end of here after that is a Washington State Patrol station for Washington State Patrol. And basically right there is their licensing department. And that's about it for the town of Morton. So we can see that the sun's trying to come on out. It's going to be a little bit of a windy drive. If you're affected by flashing at all, on the last video I did, there was a lot of sun rays coming through and had a strobe effect. Because of the cloud cover, we're not going to see a whole lot of that today. So if you did watch my last video on that drive, you won't really have to worry about that so much today. Most annoying thing today is going to be the windshield wipers going back and forth. But we'll go ahead and take a drive, and we'll head towards the town of Mineral, We're not going to stop in the town of Mineral, but we'll go by it here on Highway 7. Then I'll rejoin you back in the town of Ilby that we'll go through on our way to Eatonville. approaching the town of Elby, we'll be crossing the Nisqually River. Basically, that feeds into Alder Lake. This time of year, you're going to see it really dry. Basically, well, before I get to that, up ahead is the Elby Barn Grill. If you're ever looking for really good hamburger, steaks, that's the place to go here in town. But basically the town is, it drains out. There's a dam that it feeds through, and during the summer it goes down pretty low, and then it'll start to fill back up in the winter. On the left hand side is the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad. They basically, you can it takes mostly tourists, but you can take train rides through there. We will be experiencing that sometime down the road. Scale Burgers is on the right hand side, really good. And then on the left hand side, you can see a batch of cabooses there. You can basically stay there for the night for lodging. And then that big building that we just saw on the right hand side that looks old, kind of replaced the old garage that used to be there. That's the Washington State Department of Transportation rest stop. They're always pretty clean in there, but you can see on the left-hand side here is we're starting to see a little bit of Alder Lake, and it's basically just a mud flat. You'd have to go out quite a ways to actually hit any water, but the fishing there isn't really that great during the summer months. But if you ever want to go out there just to take a boat out, it's pretty cool. If you ever decide to go out there with jet skis or do water skiing, I would be really careful because there is debris and logs that float down. It's not the most ideal lake to do that in. There's always a possibility of hitting one of those stumps or logs that kind of come floating down that you just don't see. But you can see there, it's pretty flat. But the water, you want to see really blue water during the summertime, it's a great stop to make if you're coming through. But we'll go ahead and head on through, and our next stop is going to be in the town of Eatonville. Well, we're now entering the town of Eatonville. Used to be a mill and logging community also. It's growing at a small, steady pace. Just because the housing is becoming such a big deal. But we're not going to take a tour of the town of Eatonville. We can do that on another trip. But I just want to say thank you for watching, coming with me today on this drive on a rainy, windy autumn day. I appreciate you watching. If you're still here with me, take care of yourself and have a great week. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.